What's so wrong with wanting a partner with a similar past? There's nothing wrong with that. You might be judged for how you present these views, or rather, how others perceive you presenting these views. You are free to have any preference. I wanted a partner with a similar past. I slept around and partied then settled. I wanted someone who had done the same, so we had relatability moving forward rather than someone who had lived a shelter life and couldn't relate. Nothing at all wrong with that. Yeah, I'll find someone. Nothing wrong with this. It makes sense to me that anybody would want to find a person with similar morals and preferences to build a relationship with. I won't even bother with people trying to call you whatever for being honest enough and know what you want. Good luck. There is nothing wrong with your view. Nothing is wrong with it. You want someone with the same values. Pretty much everyone wants their partner to have the same values. There's nothing wrong with that. But the flip side is that there's also nothing wrong with going clubbing and sleeping around. You can be uninterested in someone because of their past, but you shouldn't judge them or think poorly of them as long as everything was consensual and there was no infidelity obviously. There's nothing wrong with that if that's the life you practice also. You're getting hate from a couple directions. 1. There are men who expect their women to live lives like that while they go out and drink, party, and have 5 side chicks. You can't expect someone to live a certain way and then you not live that way too. I would also venture to say there are some women who are out clubbing and drinking and having side dudes and expecting their man to stay at home and wait for them, though I think we don't hear that as much. 2. Your opinion is in the minority in society today, and having a minority opinion often attracts a degree of disapproval. My suggestion would be to explore more religious-based dating services as people using those services may be more likely to have views similar to yours. The men who are harshly judged are those who have slept with many women themselves, but wants someone near virginal as a long-term partner. Since that's a double standard if body count is that important to you, you should mention it early on in the relationship and not have to find out the other person was promiscuous. You're also throwing a bit of shade by assuming people with a higher body count have had sex with random people, hooked up with strangers, and slept around. While none of these might be true. It's okay to judge if a person is right for you, and less okay to judge their lifestyle, but not make false assumptions about their lifestyle. In my experience, men with these expectations of their female partners don't hold themselves to the same standard. That's probably why people are assuming you're misogynistic. It doesn't mean that you are, it just means others aren't fully understanding where you're coming from. If you say you prefer someone to yourself because you don't sleep around, club, etc., I think people would actually understand. Just saying I want a girl that doesn't sleep around without context sounds bad. There's 2 parts to this. The first, categorizing a lot of hookups and partying is very vague, personal, and generally impractical for partnership. The second part is when dating we can have all the preferences we want, but you do have to own up to it that you are judging someone. If you are not owning up to your biases, that shows a lack of self-introspection, possibility hypocrisy, and just generalized immaturity. So yeah, have your preference, admit you do judge people over it though. Do you usually lead off with all that extra context when you tell people what you expect from a partner? Nothing. Nothing is wrong with it. Nope, same. Nothing wrong. I don't consider myself super conservative, but I want someone who hasn't slept around, doesn't dress super immodestly, and doesn't have an OMG ass girl personality. I get it, and we're all entitled to preference. Let me preface this by saying you can date absolutely whoever you want for whatever reason. What we are debating here is the veracity of your reasoning. But ultimately what you choose to do is entirely up to you, and nobody should be forcing you to do anything you don't want to do. With this topic, what comes into question is exactly what is motivating this desire. Oftentimes, it does indeed come from a place of misogyny, but not always, of course. So why do you want someone with a similar past? Do you believe people are defined by their pasts? Are people allowed to make mistakes in their youth and reform later? Do you believe people can change? Dating is hard enough. Do you believe it's worth throwing away love and fulfillment because of things they did in their past that may be way behind them? If they didn't tell you lied about their past, how exactly would you know? They could be a totally different person now. The reason that it's such a non-issue for me personally is because it's not something that materially affects the relationship. It doesn't have an impact on their physical appearance or their personality or their financial stability, 3 of the most important things people look for in relationships. People can get defensive about their choices, especially when they've been rejected. That said, if you already were in a relationship with someone and you clearly like them and get along, and then you ended upon finding out about their past, then you have an order of operations issue. You aren't being clear about how escalated the relationships have been at this point. Are you saying like, oh, there won't be a 4th date, or are you saying, oh, this 3 months of exclusive dating is over? I have been married to my wife for 11 years this coming January. There's not a person on this planet who could compete with her. There is a beauty that can only be experienced through time together. Unattached sex is similar to eating candy. Sure, it's fun, but once you know how satisfying a meal is, you do not rely on candy to sustain you. Some people have never had a real meal, but I can tell you have. You will not find what you're looking for if you're searching through people who are not looking for the same. And as a final thought, who do you think has a more fulfilling life? Someone who wakes up to the love of their life every day, or someone who has to convince others to warm their sheets? Nothing wrong with the idea of it, but maybe it's your approach. Are you shaming women for it? Are you acting like you're above the people who do it? So how many people are you happy with them hooking up with? How many dates was acceptable until they had sex in past relationships? It can get kinda or ridiculous. Just go on what sort of person they are. You will get a feel if they are wild or not once you get to know them. The vast majority of women have a very low body count, so I think this is kind of as non-issue. I think the average for their whole life is like 6, so in their 20s it won't be many.